the farmer experience. Now we have remote control devices and satellite images that can give us information to do the work in a better way. So in that sense, I think there is a very interesting opportunity coming where agro robots that can sow in no-tilled soil, do precision weeding and pest control, and it allows a big step forward for farmers to automate the implementation of sustainable identification strategies building on conservation agriculture. Okay, this was my presentation here. I know it's a bit more philosophical in that sense, but I wanted to, for this time, to show a bit, to talk a bit with you. What do you feel? Are there things that we missed? And I think it's a nice way to set a bit the scene of what this digital agriculture as a buzzword means in a bit more detail. Thank you so much for your interest.
Thank you, Jelle. We have some questions and comments here in the chat box. For example, Gideon says that, Jelle, that agriculture is lagging behind. It's not surprising at all. Agriculture has been conservative for good reasons, risk coping and risk management. Also, we have another comment here. We have another question. Would you please share about chemical and fertilizer application through UAV and yield estimation under digital agriculture?
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, of course, there is a reason for lagging behind in a way of risk aversion, but it's also because there is a higher risk involved, I think. Like I said, it's a more uncertain situation in the open field, so it's less controllable and therefore a bit more difficult to handle and to automate. So I think that's the challenge, and that's the interesting part. We can use loads and loads of micro data to stabilize those predictions, which we otherwise would have done in a more controlled environment. Now, yeah, for UAVs applying fertilizer or pesticides, well, I think nowadays many of us have seen the little drones flying around, and up until now, most of that application has been again more in a broadcast way. So in the future, we hope to develop a situation where we can really make precision application with micro dosages, but we're not there yet. But in that sense, those drones, those highly specialized drones, can really facilitate that work and reduce the use of the excessive use of agrochemicals. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Duga is raising his hand, so please, Dr. Duga, you can open your micro.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Isabel. I just have by the way, I enjoyed your seminar. That's that's very nice, but also it brought up this issue of disconnect between, you mentioned that along with you some here and there, between what we discussed and what actually happens at small farms or even medium farms. I mean, I grew up at a farm. I have first-hand experience, and my nephew still farmed my farm back in India. And none of what you said actually makes it to the farm. If it does, all those, if the government, for example, subsidizes those machines and those tools, they go bad within a year or so, and then they just rot in somewhere on the corner of the field. So the bigger issue is the translation of this information that you gather into real farmers' fields. I mean, how are there, I'm sure there are efforts, there's extension services and whatnot. I mean, the biggest barrier is to transfer it and make it applicable. Development has been going on. I mean, ever since I got into science, I've been hearing about this and that. Back in the 80s, when I was a student at Punjab Agricultural University, there in Agricultural Engineering College, they were developing this handheld tractor, and it was already working, but nobody has it at those small farms, even now. I mean, 40 years, 35 years later. So that's my main, I think I'm going on a little too long, but you know what I'm trying to ask. I mean, how do you fill that gap of transferring this knowledge, this great knowledge, which I agree with, into actually a farmer's field and keep it there? I mean, transfer you can, but if it disappears after a year or so, like a novelty, and goes away, how do you prolong its use?
Yeah, I agree with that. Thank you for the comment, and it's a very valid comment. You know, if there's something that we always encounter is the supply chain issue, you know, with mechanization and new technology and new knowledge. Now here, I think we're talking about a little bit more about the software opportunities than the hardware. You know, a two-wheel tractor is mechanic hardware, you know, and you need some manual to instruct people how to operate it, etc. We might not be there yet with these robots and with the digital platforms, because I'm not talking only about the robots, but we are transitioning into a situation where it's plug and play situation. You have these drones that you just push on the on button and they go to the pre-programmed plan. So the need for the farmer, there will always be a need for the farmer to understand technology, but the need for the farmer to operate the technology in a more mechanical way will disappear. But we will need people that have a different skill set, that have a different affinity with microelectronics, etc. In that sense, I think shifting a bit the attention towards embracing electronic engineering, microtronics for farming. I think that's the first step to anticipate that. And then, of course, how do you avoid millions of these drones lying on the field after a couple of years? And I think also there is a difference in what a tractor represents. All these microchips and small mechanisms, they become increasingly cheaper. So I'm not saying that we should create a throwaway society where if it's broken, you leave it on the field and buy a new one. But it does facilitate a different logistics in spare parts. They're not that heavy components, they're not expensive components. So you can have smaller shops like the cell phone shops that actually repair these different equipment in a more faster or a more standardized way. Like I said, there's a problem with compatibility. If there's going to be 2 or 3 products highly specific, then it might become very costly. But I think policies can be arranged that there is a minimal compatibility with those components, and at least change the situation nowadays where you have a high specialized tractor and in a situation where you don't have the repairs infrastructure. Well, we want to step a bit away from that. So I think in that sense, I'd see it a bit more opportunistic, because just the inherent characteristics of these technologies are lighter and cheaper, and they require less technical operation skills. I hope that answers a bit your question.
Yeah, it does, but there's another issue. That's because it's unlikely that every small farmer would be able to own or even rent that kind of like machinery. So in the villages, what happens is the co-ops, that co-op buys and operates these kind of like pieces of equipment, so that if somebody in India, it's like 1 hectare, I think it's the average farm size, but in Africa, where you have 1/3 of an acre, imagine any farmer owning all this kind of equipment. The problem lies not necessarily with the machinery or with the knowledge or with your reserves. The problem lies with transferring it to the farmer's field. And those co-ops are so rotten with corruption. It's not the machine that goes bad per se. It's just the neglect and lack of responsibility. I mean, those things are beyond your control. That's the local society, the way it evolves. Slowly it will probably work. But I'm just giving you some reality check from the other side of the line, because I still keep in touch. I left India long ago, like nearly 40 years ago. I live in the USA, but I still visit my farmer religiously, every once or twice a year. So I keep in touch. I see what's going on. And this is the issue. Issue is not necessarily your knowledge, which is fine, which is great. Some of the best minds gather that knowledge. And the farmers are willing to use, but how to translate that middle part is something. So many methods have been tried. At the end, it's always the co-ops that can have and operate that kind of machinery or equipment. And they are the ones that are gotten the corruption. So the corruption is not something that is in your control or even government's control. It's people's. I'm getting a different territory, but I think I should stop. Let others ask questions.
No, great comment, and I appreciate it, and I agree to that. I think with all the new technologies, that was definitely an issue to be taken care of. In that sense, maybe having these dashboards can create early warning systems for malpractice or maluse without having to call it a monitoring or big brother system. But yeah, thank you for the comment, and it's noted, something we'll have to consider as well.
Thank you. So there is one more comment in the chat. Smart mechanization also includes the use of smart systems that can be used beyond the primary process, for instance, for traceability throughout the value chain. As this is just a comment. Also, Dr. ML Yat is raising his hand, so please, you can open your micro.
Thanks, Isabel. Congratulations, Jelle, for great presentation. Very futuristic, and I think that's where future of agriculture lies. And I think this addresses also the issue of the youth, because there is a divide, in technological advancement and the farmers' age. So on the one side, farmers are aging, and other side, technological advancements are happening. And that's the big disconnect. So in that respect, I think this, digital agriculture can attract the educated youth, and that's how we can bring back the youth in agriculture. So from that perspective, I think this is fantastic. But, one of the issue is in agriculture, that provides a lot of employment to the rural communities, and more of so the educated people, the skilled people still can get employment through digital agriculture. But how about the unskilled people, which is a large section? So how about the displacement of those unskilled people when we move forward in the direction of the digital agriculture?
Great question, Emil, and I think it's a very valid one. Mechanization in general always has this fear about job displacement, where low-skilled workers feel that they're a bit displaced by tractor operators. Here, it's a bit more about looking ways to democratize that high-tech revolution into, like I said, making systems that are more intuitively, and the supervision of those small machines will highly likely advance in a situation where it's not a highly skilled activity. Checking whether they're doing the job, whether they are operating, whether they're charged or not. Those are still activities that farm operators or farm workers can do without massive reconversion of their skills. If I understand what I mean. So I think slowly we become into we will enter in a situation where we have intelligent systems that do need this nudge or this reset or to start operating and be supervised in a simple way. A bit like the workers that scare the birds in El Batan. It's if they're not there, the work's not done. But by activities to scare the birds, or to nudge that robot back on track, you can make sure that the results are positive. So in that sense, yes, there is, for the design and development and the putting into operation we will need skilled labor, which can attract the youths, and because the older generation is not going to do that anymore, no. But there's a different, a new opportunity in agriculture in these modern sciences, let's say. And on the other side, there's also an opportunity for lesser skilled laborers to more in the supervision and the control of these systems without per se having to understand them in detail. I think that's a bit the idea that I have around that. Thank you.
Thank you. Here we have some other comments. Thank you for this nice presentation. Thank you for this excellent presentation. And one more question. How do you see the current digital divide to impact CIMMYT's work, especially in the developing world?
Yeah, that's a great one. All progress takes some time. I think that was a slogan of Windows back a couple of years ago. But it's important that we are aware of what's happening, and that's the reason why I chose this topic. I know I don't have the answers to everything, but being aware of it and how this transition is going at an ever increasing pace, that's very important. And we have to understand that it's not only about these little robots or even our use of cell phones, but this will become a reality in the farmer's world, whether we like it or not. So in that sense, knowing that it's out there, recognizing it, and actively trying to jointly find solutions to make it work, even for the resource poor or even for the low-skilled workers, is part of our of the things that we should consider in CIMMYT. Again, in any situation or in household, I also have to explain to my mom how to use the email. Within the CIMMYT as an institution, we also have to take care of people that are less digitally native. And by making these topics discussable, presentable, I think it's an entry point for even people that are not do not have a high affinity with more modern or more advanced systems. So in that sense, taking care of people, supporting them, and guiding them through these things, but not keeping them in a taboo or in a very specific area. This is something that will revolutionize the whole sector and the whole industry and all institutions. So by making it accessible to talk about, and I think that's why presenting it in this way, so there's a bit broader information about it, I think that's the first step to go about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jelle. Although digital agriculture practices, DAP, need to be inbuilt with all program systems, what is the approach or vision under 1CG to integrate DAP across the different initiatives?
Yeah, sorry. What's the abbreviation again?
All the digital agriculture practices, DAP, need to be built with all program systems. What is the approach vision under 1CG to integrate these technology, digital agriculture practices across the different teams?
Okay, well, a couple of things there. It's not an easy answer, but a couple of things there. I think in the initiatives, there's a couple of components or a couple of even golden eggs, where they called a couple of months ago, on harnessing the digital tools. So how to learn how to work with these tools or promising tools that exist. But as I mentioned a couple of times, also really considering the management around the data that's generated. How do we talk to each other? How do we compare data sets, and how are they interpreted? So I think in the 1CGR, it's important to have transparency on those data sets, to have a clear terminology on those data sets, and to have a clear structure to share and analyze or mine those data. In agricultural practice, it's again a bit more towards that establishing indicators. I think many of us are now or have been working in the 1CGR on indicators and impact for these initiatives. I think it's important also to embrace the digital technology in that in monitoring, capturing the data, and establishing correct and transparent or indicators to evidence the sustainable practices. So the combination of those three things I would consider essential into the 1CGR, having transparency, having clear structure of data management, having the right indicators and supporting to build innovative indicators to evidence our work, and using those tools that are available, but also try to understand the potential of the tools in different situations. I think that's the power of 1CGR, being able to work in different locations in similar topics, but adjust them and fine-tune them to the local conditions.
Thank you. Is this digital era data is the new money, and is it being collected massively through technology-savvy firms who promote digital gadgets, smart devices? What is your advice to protect, benefit those data providers, but no idea how it will be utilized later?
Yeah, I think a couple of those social media platforms have been doing that. So collecting data from even from users, even whether they're unaware. Also, it's important to have a digital education in that sense on not accepting every web page or every announcement or every not registering on every platform without understanding properly what the data will be used for. And that's in the point that I made also a couple of times, that this privacy of data and responsible use of data becomes ever more increasingly important. So I think in many of those social media, for example, you can now set how invasive these engines are and what information you will share. And I think that as humanity, we will also have to learn to deal with the risk involved. At this point, every person can do it individually. I think some governments choose that to do a bit more generally to protect people or to close certain areas for this phishing of data, let's call it that way. So in a sense, yeah, we have to, that's something that will come next to really, for us, able to understand how far reaching our data goes and the different channels that you could lose control on that data. Also having monitoring systems on what you share where will become increasingly important.
Thank you very much, Jelle. Thank you very much. We have already reached our time to close this seminar of today. So I would like to appreciate all the audience to be present, and I would like to appreciate Jelle van Loon, a mechanization specialist of the Integrated Development Program, an associate scientist at CIMMYT, for this interesting, excellent, and educative presentation and seminar of today. So thank you very much, Jelle, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jelle. Well done. Bye-bye.